Lauren Mitchell lived in a small town called Brookshire in Pennsylvania. She had been living there for 15 years now. The town was quiet and peaceful. People knew her as a widow who worked from home. She was a security consultant. That was what she told everyone. But that was not the whole truth. Before coming to Brookshire, Lauren had a very different life. She was a soldier. Not just any soldier. She was part of Delta Force. Her call sign was Phantom. For 12 years, she worked on missions that never made it to the news. She went to places that did not exist on any map. She did things that would remain classified forever. She was one of the best operatives her country ever had. But all that ended when her son Danny was born. Lauren looked at that tiny baby and made a choice. She wanted him to have a normal life. She wanted him to grow up without fear, without violence, without the darkness that had filled her own childhood. So she left the military. She took her skills and her secrets and buried them deep. She moved to Brookshire and became just another single mom trying to raise her kid right. Danny never knew about his mother's past. He knew she was strong and smart. He knew she could fix anything and never seemed afraid of anything. But he thought that was just how moms were. Danny was 19 now. He was a good kid, smart like his mother. He studied engineering at the community college. He loved math and science. He wanted to build things that would help people. He had friends and hobbies and dreams about the future. Lauren watched him grow into a fine young man and felt proud. This was what she had left her old life for. This was worth everything she had given up. Every night when Danny came home from school, they would have dinner together. He would tell her about his classes and his projects. She would listen and ask questions and feel grateful that her son was safe and happy, and far away from the world of violence she had known. It was a Tuesday evening in October when the phone rang. Lauren was in the kitchen making dinner. She saw the number on the screen. Brookshire Memorial Hospital. Her heart started beating faster, but her hands stayed steady. Years of training had taught her to stay calm no matter what. She answered the phone. The voice on the other end was professional but careful. They needed her to come to the hospital. There had been an incident. Her son Danny had been in an officer-involved shooting. He did not survive. They needed her to identify the body. Lauren stood very still in her kitchen. The wooden spoon in her hand did not shake. Her voice did not break when she said she would be right there. She hung up the phone. She turned off the stove. She picked up her keys and her purse. She walked to her car like she was going to the grocery store, but inside her chest, something old and dangerous was waking up. Something she had locked away 15 years ago. The part of her that had earned the name Phantom. The part of her that had never lost a mission. The part of her that knew 100 ways to kill and had used most of them. The drive to the hospital took 12 minutes. Lauren did not cry, she did not scream. She just drove. Her mind was already working, already processing, already moving from shock into something else. Something cold and clear and utterly focused. When she arrived at the hospital, 2 police officers were waiting for her. They introduced themselves, Officer Kyle Sanders and Officer Greg Palmer. Both men looked uncomfortable. Sanders did most of the talking. He explained what had happened according to their report. Danny had been pulled over for a routine traffic stop at 8:47 in the evening. He had become aggressive and erratic. He reached into his glove compartment. Officer Sanders felt threatened. He discharged his weapon 4 times. Danny was pronounced dead at the scene. Sanders said he was very sorry for her loss. He said these situations were difficult for everyone involved. Palmer nodded along and looked at his shoes. Lauren listened to every word. Her face showed nothing. No anger, no grief, no emotion at all. She looked like a woman in shock. That was what they would report later. That was what she wanted them to think. She asked to see her son. They took her to the morgue. Danny lay on a metal table covered by a white sheet. They pulled it back. Lauren looked at her boy. His face was peaceful. He looked like he was sleeping. But there were 4 bullet holes in his chest. Lauren reached out and touched his cold hand. She stood there for a long moment. Then she nodded. Yes, this was her son. This was Danny Mitchell. She signed the papers they gave her. She answered their basic questions. Yes, she understood there would be an investigation. Yes, she had their contact information. Yes, she would call if she needed anything. Before she left, Lauren asked two simple questions. Was there dash cam footage of the incident? Were there any witnesses? Officer Palmer shifted his weight from one foot to the other. He explained that the dash cam had malfunctioned. It was not working at the time of the stop. As for witnesses, the incident happened on Old Mill Road. That was a rural stretch of highway with no nearby homes. No one else was around. Lauren nodded slowly. She thanked them for their time. She walked out of the hospital into the cold October night. She sat in her car in the parking lot. She stared straight ahead for exactly 3 minutes. Then she took out her phone. She scrolled through her contacts to a number she had not called in 12 years, a number that most people would not be able to trace, a number that belonged to someone who owed her his life, someone who could get information that did not officially exist. The phone rang twice. A man's voice answered with just one word. Lauren did not waste time. She said 4 words. I need everything tonight. Then she hung up. She started her car and drove home. The house felt empty without Danny. His backpack was still by the door. His jacket hung on the coat rack. His coffee mug sat in the sink from that morning. Lauren walked past all of it. She went down to the basement. Behind a false wall that looked like ordinary concrete, there was a room that Danny had never seen. A room that contained weapons and equipment and technology that should not exist in a civilian home. Lauren opened that wall. She stepped into her past, and she began to plan. By 6 in the morning, Lauren's dining room looked like a military command center. Her contact had delivered everything she asked for. His name was Chris Bennett. He used to work for the intelligence community. Lauren had saved his life twice during operations that never made it into any official records. He did not ask questions when she called. He just sent what she needed. Encrypted files appeared on her laptop. Personnel records for every officer in the Brookshire Police Department. Financial records going back 10 years. Complaint histories. Communication logs, everything. Lauren had not slept. She did not need to. She had gone 72 hours without sleep many times during her service. This was nothing. She worked through the files with the same cold precision that had once made her the most effective operative in Delta Force. She read every detail. She made notes. She built timelines. She looked for patterns. And she found them. The patterns were ugly. Officer Kyle Sanders had been involved in 3 shootings before Danny. All 3 were ruled justified by internal investigations. All 3 happened in the last 5 years. Officer Greg Palmer had a different record. 2 excessive force complaints. Both investigated by the department. Both cleared with no consequences. But it was not just Sanders and Palmer. Lauren pulled up statistics for the entire Brookshire Police Department. Over the past 4 years, officer-involved shootings had increased by 340%. That was not normal. That was not random. In a town of 12,000 people, that number made no sense. Unless something else was happening. Unless these shootings were not what they appeared to be. Lauren looked at the locations next. Most of the shootings happened in 2 areas. Old Mill Road and the industrial district near the edge of town. Old Mill Road was where Danny died. It was a rural highway with no cameras and no witnesses, perfect for something you wanted to hide. The industrial district was mostly warehouses and storage facilities. Not many people went there after dark. Lauren marked both locations on a map. Then she started digging into Danny's last day. She pulled up his phone records using access codes that technically did not exist anymore. Danny had sent 12 text messages on the day he died, all of them normal, all of them innocent. His last message was to a classmate named Justin Clark. It said, "See you Thursday, gonna grab dinner at Mom's." Danny had classes until 7 that evening. His calculus study group met twice a week. The meeting location was at Justin's apartment. Lauren found Justin's address. He lived in the industrial district, near the warehouses. Danny drove through that area twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursday, for 3 months. Lauren accessed traffic camera footage from intersections near Justin's apartment. It took her 40 minutes to find what she needed. She watched Danny's silver Honda appear on 3 different cameras. He was driving normally. He signaled at turns. He obeyed speed limits. He looked like any other college kid driving home. Then his car turned onto Old Mill Road. There were no cameras there. 15 minutes later, the police report was filed. Danny Mitchell shot and killed during a traffic stop. Officer felt threatened. Justified use of force. But something was wrong. Lauren could feel it. She had spent years hunting people who did bad things. She knew how to read situations, how to spot lies, how to see what people wanted to hide. And this whole thing felt wrong. The dashcam malfunction was too convenient. The location was too isolated. The officer's story was too clean. And then there were the other shootings. 7 young people dead in 4 years, all on Old Mill Road or near the industrial district. All ruled justified, all forgotten. Lauren made a list of the victims. Their names, their ages, their backgrounds. Most of them were college students or young adults. Most of them had no criminal records. Most of them were smart and observant. People who paid attention to their surroundings. People who might notice things they were not supposed to see. Lauren stared at the list for a long time. Then she started researching the industrial district. The area had changed over the past 5 years. Several new businesses had moved in. Most were legitimate. Shipping companies, storage facilities, light manufacturing. But one warehouse stood out. It was owned by a shell corporation registered in Delaware. The company had no website, no employees listed, no obvious purpose. But according to utility records, that warehouse used a lot of electricity, more than an empty building should use. And according to traffic patterns Lauren pulled from various databases, several Brookshire police officers made regular visits to that location, including Sanders and Palmer. Lauren grabbed her jacket and keys. It was time to see this warehouse for herself. She drove across town as the sun came up. Brookshire was waking up. People heading to work. Kids waiting for school buses. Normal life continuing like nothing had happened, like her son had not been murdered less than 24 hours ago. Lauren felt nothing as she drove. No anger, no sadness. Just focus. She had learned a long time ago how to put emotions away when she needed to work. Emotions got you killed. Emotions made you sloppy. She would have time to feel later. Right now she had a job to do. The industrial district looked abandoned in the early morning light. Most businesses did not open until 8 or 9. Lauren parked 3 blocks away from the Target warehouse. She walked the rest of the way. She looked like someone out for a morning walk. Just a woman in jeans and a jacket. Nothing threatening. Nothing memorable. But her eyes were recording everything. Security cameras. Entry points. Sight lines. Patrol patterns. She circled the entire area twice. The warehouse had cameras, but they were cheap ones. Easy to avoid. There was a loading dock in back. 2 regular doors on the sides. No guards visible. But there were cars in the parking lot. Someone was inside. Lauren did not approach the building. Not yet. She had learned patience a long time ago. You did not rush into unknown situations. You gathered information first. You made plans. You prepared for every possibility. Then you acted. She returned to her car and drove home. She had what she needed for now. A target, a location, a connection between the police and something hidden in that warehouse. It was enough to start with. Back home, Lauren set up surveillance equipment. She had cameras that could read license plates from a mile away. She had listening devices that could pick up conversations through walls. She had satellite access that most governments would kill for. She pointed all of it at that warehouse. Then she waited. Waiting was part of the job. You could not force things. You had to let them develop. Let people reveal themselves. Lauren was very good at waiting. The funeral was on Friday. Lauren wore a simple black dress. She stood by Danny's coffin and accepted condolences from neighbors and his college friends. People said all the usual things. He was such a good boy. So smart. So much potential. What a tragedy. So sorry for your loss. Lauren nodded and thanked them. She played the role of grieving mother perfectly. Because that was what she was. She was grieving, but she was also working. Every person who spoke to her was recorded by the small device hidden in her watch. Every conversation was data, information that might be useful later. Justin Clark came to the funeral. He was crying. He told Lauren that Danny was his best friend. They studied together twice a week. Danny was helping him pass calculus. Justin said he could not believe what happened. He said the police story did not make sense. Danny was the calmest person he knew. He would never act aggressive toward a cop. He would never reach for anything in a threatening way. Lauren agreed quietly. She asked Justin about their study sessions. Where exactly did he live? What route did Danny usually take to get there? Justin gave her all the details without realizing why she was asking. After the funeral, Police Chief Harold Burke came to speak with her. He was a heavy man in his 50s with gray hair and tired eyes. He said the investigation into Danny's death was ongoing. He said these matters were taken very seriously. He said the department wanted to be transparent. Lauren listened and nodded. She asked if she could see the investigation file when it was complete. Burke said that might be possible. He gave her his card. He told her to call if she needed anything. Lauren thanked him and watched him walk away. She had already pulled his financial records. Burke owned a house worth $400,000, on a salary that barely cleared $60,000 a year. Interesting. That night, Lauren went back to work. Her surveillance on the warehouse was paying off. Over 3 days, she had recorded 37 vehicles entering and leaving. Most were ordinary delivery trucks, but 6 vehicles belonged to Brookshire police officers, Sanders and Palmer, 2 patrol officers named Craig Peters and Scott Hall, a detective named Frank Morrison, and Chief Burke himself. They came at different times. They never stayed long, usually less than an hour, but they came regularly. Burke visited twice in 3 days. That was not normal. Chiefs did not make regular visits to random warehouses, not unless something important was happening there. Lauren decided to get inside. She waited until 2 in the morning. The warehouse district was completely dark. No traffic, no witnesses. She approached from the back where the cameras had blind spots. She wore black clothing and a dark cap. She moved like a shadow, like the ghost that gave her the call sign, Phantom. The rear door had a standard commercial lock. It took her 90 seconds to pick it. She slipped inside and closed the door behind her. The warehouse was bigger than it looked from outside. The main floor was full of crates and boxes stacked on pallets. Lauren moved between them silently. She checked several boxes. They contained car parts, legitimate merchandise. But there was an office area in the back. She headed toward it. The office door was locked too. This lock was better, more expensive, the kind you used when you wanted to protect something valuable. Lauren had it open in 3 minutes. Inside the office, she found what she was looking for: a desk with a computer, filing cabinets, a safe built into the wall. Lauren started with the computer. It was password protected, but she had tools for that. She plugged in a small device that ran through common passwords at high speed. While it worked, she searched the filing cabinets. Most contained shipping manifests and inventory records. All legitimate. But the bottom drawer of the second cabinet was locked separately. Lauren picked that lock too. Inside were ledgers, handwritten records, numbers and codes that did not match any legitimate business. Lauren photographed every page with her phone. Then she checked the safe. It was an older model, the kind that relied on a combination lock. Lauren pressed her ear against it and slowly turned the dial. She listened for the tiny clicks that told her when each number was correct. It took her 11 minutes. The safe opened. Inside were bundles of cash. Lots of cash. Lauren estimated at least $200,000. There were also 3 phones. Burner phones, the kind criminals used, and a ledger that matched the one from the filing cabinet. Lauren photographed everything. The computer finally unlocked. Lauren went through the files quickly. She found shipping schedules, contact information, coded messages. Everything pointed to the same thing. This warehouse was a distribution center, drugs coming in from somewhere, getting stored here, then distributed to dealers across the region, and the Brookshire Police Department was providing protection. Making sure no one looked too closely, making sure anyone who did look too closely disappeared. Like Danny. Lauren heard a sound outside. A car engine. She moved to the window and looked out. A patrol car was pulling into the parking lot. Sanders was driving. Palmer was in the passenger seat. They were early. Not supposed to be here until morning according to the schedule Lauren had observed. She looked at her watch. 2:37. This was not a scheduled visit. Something had changed. Maybe her surveillance had been detected. Maybe they were getting nervous about something else. Either way, she needed to leave. Now. She closed everything she had opened. She made sure nothing looked disturbed. Then she moved back into the warehouse. She heard the front door opening. Voices, Sanders and Palmer talking. Lauren went to the rear exit. She opened it slowly, silent. She slipped out into the night and closed the door behind her. She heard Sanders say something about checking the office. She moved away from the building quickly, but quietly. By the time they realized someone had been inside, she was 3 blocks away. Back in her car, Lauren reviewed everything she had learned. The warehouse was definitely a drug operation. The police were definitely involved, and they were getting nervous about something. Maybe the journalist who had started asking questions. Lauren had seen the local news. A reporter named Kate Morrison had done a story about the pattern of police shootings. The department denied everything, but the story was getting attention. That would make the people running this operation worried. Worried people made mistakes. Lauren needed them to make mistakes. She needed them to expose themselves completely. Only then could she destroy them all. She drove home and spent the rest of the night organizing her evidence. She had photographs, financial records, surveillance video, eyewitness testimony from people who did not know they were witnesses. It was enough to prove corruption, enough to prove the shootings were not justified, enough to prove Danny was murdered. But it was not enough for what Lauren wanted. She did not just want arrests. She did not just want trials. She wanted everyone involved to pay, and she wanted to make sure this never happened again. That meant going deeper. That meant finding everyone involved. That meant burning the whole thing down. Lauren knew she needed more than evidence of corruption. She needed to understand the complete network. Who was running the operation? Where the drugs came from? Where the money went? How many people were involved? She spent the next week building that picture. She followed officers when they left work. She tracked their movements. She monitored their phone calls. She became their shadow. They never knew she was there. Officer Craig Peters led her to the first major piece. He drove to a truck stop 40 miles outside Brookshire every Tuesday night. He met with the same man each time, a tall guy with a shaved head who drove an 18-wheeler. Lauren photographed them. She ran the truck's license plate. It was registered to a shipping company based in Texas. She dug deeper. The company had ties to a known cartel operating along the border. That was where the drugs were coming from. The truck brought them north. Peters provided escort, made sure they reached the warehouse safely. Detective Frank Morrison provided another piece. He visited the county courthouse twice a week. Always the same time. Always met with the same person. Assistant prosecutor named Alan Hughes. They had lunch together, talked like old friends, but Lauren knew what they really were. Hughes was making sure any investigations into the police department went nowhere. He was burying evidence, dismissing complaints, protecting the operation from legal scrutiny. Lauren added his name to her list. The biggest surprise came from following Chief Burke. He did not just visit the warehouse. Once a week, he drove to a restaurant in the next county. Expensive place. He met with a man in expensive suits. Lauren photographed them through the restaurant window. She ran facial recognition on the man. His name was Victor Reyes. He owned several legitimate businesses. Car dealerships, construction companies, real estate. But intelligence reports suggested he was connected to organized crime. He was the money man, the one who laundered the drug profits through his businesses. And he was meeting with the chief of police like they were business partners. Lauren now understood the full scope. This was not just a few dirty cops. This was an organized criminal network that had infiltrated local government. The police provided security and eliminated threats. The prosecutor's office buried investigations. The businessman laundered money and provided political cover through campaign donations. And anyone who got too curious ended up dead on Old Mill Road. 7 young people, 7 murders disguised as justified shootings, and her son was the 7th. She needed leverage, something that would make the whole system crack open. She decided to go after Kate Morrison. The journalist had published one story about the suspicious shootings. Then she went quiet. Lauren found out why. Morrison had been receiving threats, anonymous calls, cars following her. She was scared. Lauren understood. Morrison was trying to expose corruption in a small town where the corrupt people had all the power. That took courage. But courage alone was not enough. Morrison needed protection. And Lauren needed someone to tell this story publicly. Lauren called Morrison from a burner phone. She did not identify herself. She just said she had information about the police shootings. Morrison was suspicious at first. She had been getting crank calls for weeks. But Lauren told her 3 facts that were not public knowledge. Details from the investigation files that only someone on the inside could know. Morrison agreed to meet. They chose a diner in the next county. Neutral ground. Morrison was younger than Lauren expected. Maybe 30. Blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked tired, stressed. She sat across from Lauren in a back booth and pulled out a notebook. Lauren shook her head. No notes. Nothing written down. Just listen. Then Lauren told her everything. The warehouse. The drug operation. The police involvement. The pattern of murders. The connections to organized crime. Morrison's eyes got wider with each detail. When Lauren finished, Morrison asked the obvious question. Who are you? How do you know all this? Lauren did not answer directly. She said she was someone who lost a family member to these people, someone with the skills to find the truth, someone who wanted justice. Morrison asked if Lauren was law enforcement. Lauren smiled slightly. Not anymore. But she had the evidence to prove everything. She would provide it. But Morrison had to be smart. She had to be careful. These people killed to protect their operation. They would not hesitate to kill a journalist. Morrison said she wanted to do the story. She wanted to expose what was happening in Brookshire. But her editor was nervous. The first story had brought legal threats from the police department. Her newspaper was small. They could not afford a long legal battle. Lauren had expected this. She told Morrison to wait 1 more week. Things were about to change. When they did, the story would be impossible to ignore. Every major news organization would want it. Morrison would have her pick of where to publish. Morrison looked confused but agreed. That night, Lauren made a decision. She had spent 2 weeks gathering evidence. Now it was time to act. But she would not go to the authorities yet. The local authorities were corrupt. State police might help, but investigations took time. Months, maybe years. And during that time, evidence could disappear. Witnesses could be intimidated or killed. The people responsible could run. Lauren had seen it happen before. She knew how the system worked. Sometimes the system failed. Sometimes justice required other methods. She started with the warehouse. She waited until 3 in the morning. She approached from the same blind spot she used before. This time she was not there to gather evidence. She was there to send a message. She planted devices in 3 locations around the building. Small charges, not enough to hurt anyone. Just enough to destroy inventory, enough to cost them money, enough to make them panic. She set the timers for 6 hours. Then she left. At 9 in the morning, the explosions went off. Small controlled bursts. The fire department responded. By the time they put out the fires, half the inventory in the warehouse was destroyed. Thousands of pounds of drugs gone. Millions of dollars in losses. Lauren watched the news coverage from home. Police said it appeared to be an electrical fire. Accidental. But she knew the people running the operation would know better. They would know someone had hit them. Someone who knew what they were doing. They would panic, and panicked people made mistakes. The next message went to Officer Sanders. Lauren broke into his house again. This time she left evidence where he would find it. Copies of the ledgers from the warehouse. Photographs of him meeting with known criminals. A note with just one sentence. Turn yourself in or everyone sees this. Sanders would have a choice. Cooperate or go down with everyone else. Lauren gave him the same choice she would give all of them. Save yourself or protect the people who would throw you away the moment you became a liability. She did the same thing to Officer Palmer. To Craig Peters. To Scott Hall. Each one came home to find evidence of their crimes waiting for them. Each one found a note telling them they had one chance. Cooperate with authorities or face exposure. Lauren was turning them against each other, making them paranoid, making them wonder who else knew. Who else had evidence? It was psychological warfare, the kind she had used against terrorists. Break their trust, break their unity, make them weak. The final message went to Chief Burke. Lauren did not break into his house. She did something worse. She sent copies of his financial records to his wife. Bank statements showing accounts Mrs. Burke did not know about. Records of cash payments. Properties purchased under false names. Lauren included a note. Ask your husband where this money came from. Ask him what he has been doing. Mrs. Burke would ask questions. Burke would have to answer. And his home life would become as unstable as his criminal life. Pressure from all sides. That was how you broke someone. The warehouse explosion and the personal threats had exactly the effect Lauren wanted. The criminal network started to fracture. She monitored their communications. Phone calls full of accusations. Who talked? Who leaked? Who could be trusted? Sanders called Palmer at 2 a.m, asking if he had said anything to anyone. Palmer called Peters asking the same thing. No one trusted anyone. The organization was eating itself from the inside. Victor Reyes called an emergency meeting. Lauren watched them gather at the warehouse 3 nights after the explosion. Reyes arrived in his expensive car. Chief Burke came in his personal vehicle. Sanders, Palmer, Peters, Hall, and Morrison all showed up. So did Alan Hughes from the prosecutor's office. And 2 men Lauren did not recognize, probably cartel representatives. They went inside. Lauren had planted listening devices during her first visit. She heard every word they said. Reyes was angry. The explosion had cost them over $2 million. Their suppliers were unhappy. They wanted assurances that the operation was secure. They wanted to know who was responsible. Burke tried to calm him down. He said it was probably just an accident. Old building. Bad wiring. Reyes did not believe him. He said accidents did not come with threatening notes to half his police officers. Someone was targeting them. Someone who knew too much. Sanders spoke up. He was scared. You could hear it in his voice. He said maybe they should shut down for a while. Let things cool off. Reyes laughed. Shut down. They moved $5 million a month through this operation. You did not shut that down because someone got nosy. You found whoever was causing problems and you eliminated them, just like they had eliminated problems before, just like they eliminated that kid a few weeks ago. Sanders went quiet. He did not like being reminded about Danny. The meeting went on for 2 hours. They decided to increase security at the warehouse. They would have armed guards 24 hours. They would sweep for listening devices and cameras. They would tighten their operational security. No more meetings at the warehouse. No more phone calls on personal devices. They would find whoever was attacking them and deal with it permanently. When the meeting ended, they left in separate vehicles. Careful, paranoid, good. That was exactly what Lauren wanted. But Lauren had heard something important during that meeting. Reyes had mentioned suppliers, people higher up the chain who were getting nervous. That meant this operation was part of something bigger. Taking down Brookshire would not be enough. She needed to expose the entire network. That meant she needed to get to Reyes. He was the connection between the local operation and the cartel. He would have records, names, locations, everything. She spent 3 days studying Reyes. He lived in a mansion outside town, gated property with security. He drove to his office every day. He ate lunch at expensive restaurants. He played golf at the country club on weekends. He was careful. He had bodyguards. But everyone had vulnerabilities. Lauren found his. Once a week, Reyes visited a woman who was not his wife. She lived in an apartment downtown. Reyes went there every Thursday night. He sent his bodyguards away. He wanted privacy for his affair. That was his weakness. Thursday night, Lauren was waiting in the apartment when Reyes arrived. She had picked the lock and disabled the woman's home security system. The woman was not there. Lauren had arranged for her to receive a call about a family emergency. She would be gone for hours. Reyes used his key and walked in expecting to find his girlfriend. Instead, he found Lauren sitting in the dark living room. When he turned on the lights, she was pointing a gun at his chest. Not to kill him, just to make sure he understood the situation. Reyes was smart. He did not try to run or fight. He just stood very still and asked who she was. Lauren told him to sit down. He did. She asked him about the Brookshire operation. He said he did not know what she was talking about. Lauren smiled. She told him she had been listening to his meeting at the warehouse. She repeated several things he had said. Direct quotes. Reyes' face went pale. He realized she knew everything. Lauren gave him a choice. He could cooperate, give her all the information she needed about the cartel, the suppliers, the distribution network, the money laundering operations, all of it. Or she could kill him right now and take the information from his office and his computers. Reyes asked what would happen if he cooperated. Lauren said he would go to prison. But he would live. He could make a deal with federal prosecutors, testify against his partners, maybe get 20 years instead of life, maybe even less, or he could refuse and die tonight. His choice. Reyes thought about it for a long minute. Then he started talking. He told her about the cartel, a group called the Gulf Network. They operated across 5 states. The Brookshire operation was just one of dozens. Reyes handled money laundering for the entire region. He took drug money and ran it through his legitimate businesses. Car sales, construction contracts, real estate investments. Clean money came out the other side. He gave Lauren names, locations, bank accounts, everything. He also told her about the protection system. Every operation had corrupt law enforcement providing security. Sometimes it was just a few cops. Sometimes it was entire departments. The cartel paid well, better than police salaries, and they were very good at identifying officers who could be bought, officers with debts, officers with habits, officers who wanted more than their job could provide. Once you had a few cops on the payroll, you could operate freely. And if anyone caused problems, those cops handled it. Like what happened to her son. Lauren asked him directly about Danny. Reyes said he did not give that order. That was Burke. The chief had called him worried about a kid who drove through the warehouse district too often. A smart kid who might notice things. Burke wanted permission to handle it. Reyes gave it. He did not think twice about it. One more body was nothing. They had done it 6 times before. It was just business. Lauren felt rage rise in her chest, but she kept it controlled. She asked who else knew about Danny's murder. Reyes said all the officers involved. Sanders pulled the trigger. Palmer backed him up. Burke gave the order. Morrison helped cover it up. Hughes made sure no investigation happened. All of them knew. All of them were guilty. Lauren recorded everything Reyes said. She had a device hidden in her jacket. Every word was captured. Every name. Every detail. When he finished talking, she told him to go home. Act normal. Do not tell anyone about this conversation. If he ran or warned anyone, she would release everything she had to law enforcement and to the cartel. Both sides would want him dead, he agreed. He left the apartment looking like a man who knew his life was over. Lauren went home and organized all the new information. She now had testimony from someone inside the operation. She had names and details about the cartel. She had enough to bring down not just Brookshire, but the entire regional network. But she still needed one more thing. She needed the police officers to turn on each other. She needed someone to confess, someone to provide official testimony that could be used in court, and she knew exactly how to make that happen. Officer Kyle Sanders was the weakest link. He was the one who pulled the trigger. He was the one who would face murder charges if the truth came out. He was also the most scared. Lauren had seen it in his face at the warehouse meeting. He was cracking. She just needed to push him over the edge. She went to his house one more time. This time she did not hide. She knocked on his door at 10 at night. When he answered, she was standing there in plain sight. Sanders stared at Lauren standing on his doorstep. He recognized her immediately. Danny Mitchell's mother. For a moment he just stood there frozen. Then his hand moved toward his gun. Lauren's voice stopped him cold. If you touch that weapon, you will be dead before it clears the holster. Sit down, Kyle. We need to talk about my son. Her voice was calm, almost friendly, but there was something in her eyes that made Sanders afraid, something that told him this woman was far more dangerous than she looked. He stepped back and let her in. What choice did he have? She walked into his living room like she owned it. She sat down in his chair. He stood awkwardly by the door. Lauren told him to sit. He sat on the couch. She placed her phone on the coffee table between them. Then she pressed play. Sanders heard his own voice, the recording from Danny's phone, the one that was supposed to be erased. I'm complying, officer. My registration is in the glove box. Keep your hands where I can see them. I am, sir. You asked for my registration. Then gunshots. Then his voice again quieter, same as the others. Call it in. Sanders' face went white. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Lauren let the recording play twice. Then she started talking. She told him exactly who she was. Not just Danny's mother. She told him about Delta Force, about her call sign, about operations in places he had never heard of, about things she had done that would remain classified forever. She described missions in detail, things only someone who was really there could know. Sanders realized he was sitting across from someone who had killed more people than he could imagine. Someone trained by the best. Someone who could end his life without breaking a sweat. Then Lauren told him what she knew about the Brookshire operation. She laid it all out. The warehouse, the drugs, the cartel connections, Victor Reyes, Chief Burke, the protection racket, the 7 murders disguised as police shootings. She knew everything. Sanders tried to deny it at first, tried to claim she was making things up. Lauren just smiled. She told him she had recordings of their warehouse meeting. She had financial records showing payments from Reyes. She had testimony from Reyes himself. She had evidence that would send Sanders to prison for the rest of his life. Multiple counts of murder, drug trafficking, corruption. He was done. Sanders broke down. He put his head in his hands. He said he never wanted any of this. It started small, just looking the other way sometimes. Then it became bigger, more money, more involvement. Before he knew it, he was in too deep. He could not get out. They owned him. The first shooting was an accident, a real accident. But Burke saw an opportunity. Old Mill Road. No cameras, no witnesses. Perfect place to handle problems. They started using it. Anyone who got too curious, anyone who might talk, they would get pulled over. Things would escalate. Justified shooting. It worked 6 times. Danny was supposed to be the 7th, but Danny was different, Sanders said. Danny did not do anything wrong. He was just a kid driving home from studying. Sanders pulled him over because Burke told him to. Burke said the kid drove through the warehouse district too often, too smart, too observant. Might have seen something. Might become a problem. Handle it. So Sanders did. He murdered an innocent kid because his boss told him to. And he called it in as a justified shooting like all the others. He went home that night and slept fine. Until now. Until Danny's mother turned out to be someone who could destroy him. Lauren listened to all of this without emotion. Then she gave Sanders a choice. The same choice she had given Reyes. Turn yourself in to the state police. Not Brookshire PD. State police. Cooperate fully. Tell them everything about the operation. Give them Burke. Give them Reyes. Give them everyone involved. Testify in court. Maybe he would get a deal. Maybe he would avoid the death penalty. Maybe he would see daylight again someday. Or he could refuse. And Lauren would release everything she had to every news organization in the country. She would also make sure the cartel knew he was the weak link, that he was talking. Let them handle him. Either law enforcement got him or his partners did. His choice. Sanders asked how much time he had to decide. Lauren said 24 hours. Then she stood up and walked out. She left him sitting there in his living room, broken, terrified, knowing his life was over no matter what he chose. But at least he had a choice, which was more than Danny had, more than any of the 7 kids they murdered. Lauren felt no sympathy for him. He deserved whatever happened next. She went home and waited. She did not think Sanders would run. He was too scared, too broken. He would either turn himself in, or he would do something stupid. Either way worked for Lauren. If he ran, it would make everyone else panic. They would start turning on each other faster. If he turned himself in, she would have her confession, her official testimony, the thing that would make everything else stick. So she waited. Sanders lasted 18 hours. Then he broke completely. At 4 a.m, he got in his car and started driving. But he did not run far. He drove to the state police barracks 2 counties over. He walked in and asked to speak to someone about police corruption in Brookshire. The desk sergeant thought he was crazy at first. A cop from another jurisdiction coming in at 4 in the morning talking about corruption. But Sanders showed them his badge. He showed them his gun. He said he was involved in multiple murders. He said he wanted to confess. They put him in an interview room and called their detectives. Lauren knew about it within an hour. She had contacts everywhere, people who owed her favors. One of them worked in the state police. He sent her a text. "Your guy came in. Talking." Lauren smiled. It was happening. Sanders spent 6 hours confessing everything: the drug operation, the corrupt officers, the staged shootings, all 7 of them. He gave them dates and details. He told them about Chief Burke and Victor Reyes. He told them about the warehouse, about the money, about the protection system. He gave them everything. The state police moved fast. By noon, they had contacted the FBI. This was bigger than one corrupt police department. This was organized crime, federal charges. By evening, they had assembled a task force: FBI agents, state investigators, federal prosecutors. They started preparing arrest warrants. They started planning raids. They wanted everyone involved: the corrupt cops, the cartel members, the businessman, the prosecutor, all of them. And they wanted to do it simultaneously. Hit everyone at once so nobody could run or destroy evidence. Lauren received updates throughout the day. Her contact at the state police kept her informed. She knew exactly what was happening. The FBI wanted to move within 48 hours. They were gathering resources, coordinating teams, preparing for a major operation. Lauren approved. This was what she wanted. Not just arrests, a complete takedown. Everyone involved facing justice. But she had one more thing to do. One more person to deal with. Chief Harold Burke. Burke did not know about Sanders yet. The state police and FBI kept it quiet. They did not want him warned. They wanted him thinking everything was fine. That gave Lauren an opportunity. She went to see Burke at his home that evening. His wife answered the door. Lauren introduced herself as Danny Mitchell's mother. Mrs. Burke's face showed sympathy. She had seen the news about Danny. She invited Lauren in. Burke was in his study. His wife called him out. Burke came into the living room and his face changed when he saw Lauren. He recovered quickly, tried to act sympathetic, said he was sorry about Danny, said the investigation was still ongoing. Lauren cut him off. She said she knew everything. She knew about the drug operation. She knew he ordered Danny's death. She knew Sanders had already confessed. She knew federal agents would be kicking in his door within 2 days. Burke's face went hard. His wife looked confused, shocked. Lauren turned to her. "Ask your husband about the money I sent you records of. Ask him about the 7 kids he had murdered. Ask him who he really is." Then Lauren left. She did not wait for Burke's response. She had said what she needed to say. Burke would panic now. He would make mistakes. Maybe he would run. Maybe he would try to contact his partners. Either way, he would expose himself further. And his wife now knew the truth. His home was no longer safe. His marriage was over. His life was collapsing. Lauren wanted him to feel that. Wanted him to know what it felt like to lose everything. The way she lost Danny. 4 months after the arrests, Lauren sold her house in Brookshire. She could not stay there anymore. Too many memories. Too much pain. Every street reminded her of Danny. Every corner where they used to walk together. Every restaurant where they had dinner. The house felt empty without him. His room still had his things. His books. His laptop. His clothes in the closet. Lauren had not touched any of it. But she could not live like that forever. She needed to move on. Not forget. She would never forget, but move forward somehow. She found a small town in Montana. Population 3,000. Mountains, clean air. Far from everything that happened in Brookshire, she bought a modest house on the edge of town. 2 bedrooms, a small yard, a view of the mountains from the back porch. It was quiet, peaceful, the kind of place where nothing bad ever happened. The kind of place Danny would have liked. Lauren moved there in February. She brought Danny's picture and a few of his things. The rest she donated to his college. They set up a scholarship in his name for engineering students who wanted to make the world better. Students like Danny. In Montana, Lauren started over. She still worked as a security consultant, but she changed her focus. Instead of corporate security, she specialized in police reform. She helped towns and cities identify corruption in their departments. She designed oversight systems. She trained internal affairs investigators. She showed them what to look for, how to spot patterns, how to find evidence. She became an expert in fighting police corruption. Communities hired her when they suspected problems. She would come in quietly, review records, interview people, build cases, then hand everything to proper authorities. She never made arrests herself. She just found the truth. Let the system handle it from there. The work was important. She knew that. Police corruption was not unique to Brookshire. It happened everywhere. Small towns, big cities, officers who forgot what they were supposed to do. Who got greedy? Who chose themselves over the community? Lauren's skills made her uniquely qualified to fight it. Her background let her see things others missed. Her training let her investigate without being detected. Her experience let her build airtight cases. She was making a difference, helping people who had no one else to turn to. It did not bring Danny back, but it honored his memory, made sure his death meant something. She also started training others, young investigators who wanted to fight corruption, journalists who wanted to expose wrongdoing, activists who wanted to hold police accountable. Lauren taught them everything she could: how to gather evidence, how to protect yourself, how to build cases that would hold up in court, how to be thorough and careful and smart. She never told them about her Delta Force background. That was not relevant. She just taught them skills that worked, skills that saved lives, skills that brought bad cops to justice. Kate Morrison visited her once. 6 months after the arrests, Morrison was working on a book about the Brookshire case. She wanted to interview Lauren, get her perspective as a victim's mother. Lauren agreed but set conditions. No details about her background. No discussion of her methods. Just her experience as Danny's mother. Morrison agreed. They talked for hours. About Danny. About the investigation. About the impact on the community. About how corruption grew when good people did nothing. Morrison recorded everything. Later, she sent Lauren a copy of the relevant chapters. She had kept her promise. Lauren appeared in the book only as a grieving mother who refused to accept official lies. The book became a bestseller. It sparked national conversations about police accountability, about oversight, about justice. Danny's name was in that conversation. His story mattered. The trials took over a year. Sanders testified against everyone. He described the operation in detail. The jury heard about 7 murders. 7 innocent young people killed because they were in the wrong place, because they might have seen something, because corrupt cops decided they were threats. The jury heard recordings, saw financial records, watched surveillance footage Lauren had gathered. The evidence was overwhelming. Burke was convicted on all counts: 7 counts of first-degree murder, conspiracy, corruption, drug trafficking. The judge gave him 7 consecutive life sentences. No possibility of parole. He would die in prison. Palmer, Peters, Hall, and Morrison all received similar sentences. Alan Hughes got 30 years. Victor Reyes got 45 years plus forfeiture of all assets. His business empire was dismantled. His wealth seized. Everything he built was gone. The families of all 7 victims filed civil suits against Brookshire, against the police department, against the town. The cases settled for a total of $40 million. The town's insurance company went bankrupt. Brookshire itself nearly went bankrupt. They had to lay off most town employees, close facilities. The town would take decades to recover. But Lauren felt no sympathy. The town had enabled this corruption. The town had looked the other way while its police department murdered children. The town deserved consequences. Maybe other towns would learn from Brookshire's example. Maybe they would watch their police more carefully. Hold them accountable. That was Lauren's hope anyway. On the first anniversary of Danny's death, Lauren visited his grave. She had him buried in Montana near her new home. Not in Brookshire. She did not want him in that town. She wanted him somewhere clean, somewhere pure. She stood at his headstone and talked to him. told him about the trials, about the convictions, about how his death had stopped these people, how it led to police reform efforts across the country, how his name was now associated with justice and accountability. She told him she was sorry. Sorry she could not protect him. Sorry she had left her old life behind. If she had stayed in Delta Force, maybe she would have seen the danger. Maybe she could have prevented this. But she had wanted him to have a normal life. And normal life in America meant trusting the police. She had trusted them. That was her mistake. She left flowers on his grave and walked back to her car. As she drove home, her phone rang. It was a number she did not recognize. She answered. A woman's voice. Nervous. Scared. She said her name was Linda Carter. Her daughter had been killed by police in a town in Ohio. The official story said her daughter attacked an officer. But Linda did not believe it. Her daughter was not violent. The story did not make sense. Linda had heard about what happened in Brookshire. She heard Lauren Mitchell helped expose the truth there. She was wondering if Lauren could help her. If Lauren could find out what really happened to her daughter. Lauren pulled over to the side of the road. She sat in silence for a moment. This was a choice. She could say no. She could tell Linda to go to the authorities, to hire a lawyer, to handle it through proper channels. She could keep her distance, focus on her consulting work, stay away from the dangerous parts. But she knew what Linda was going through. She knew the pain, the doubt, the desperate need to know the truth. And she knew that sometimes the proper channels failed. Sometimes justice needed a push. Sometimes it needed someone willing to go further than the system allowed. Someone with skills most people did not have. Someone who refused to stop until they found the truth. Lauren took a deep breath. She asked Linda for details. The town, the officer's name, when it happened. Linda gave her everything through tears. Lauren wrote it all down. She told Linda she would look into it. She would find out what really happened. If the shooting was justified, she would tell Linda the truth. But if it was murder, if it was corruption, if it was another Brookshire, then Lauren would handle it. The same way she handled Brookshire, quietly, thoroughly, completely. She would expose the truth. She would bring justice, no matter what it took. When the call ended, Lauren sat in her car and looked at the mountains. She had hoped to leave this behind, to live quietly, to consult from a distance. But she realized now that was not possible. There were too many Brookshires out there, too many corrupt departments, too many dead kids, too many grieving mothers with no one to help them. Lauren had skills that could help, skills that could find the truth, skills that could bring justice when the system failed. She had tried to lock those skills away, but Danny's death had reminded her why those skills mattered. They did not just destroy. They could also protect. They could also heal. They could give people like Linda Carter what they needed most. Answers, truth, justice. Lauren started her car and drove home. She had work to do, research to conduct, evidence to gather, another investigation to start. She was not Phantom anymore. That life was over. But she was something else now. Something new. A mother who lost her son and refused to let his death be meaningless. A woman who used her skills to help others. A hunter of corrupt cops. A seeker of truth. A force for justice in a system that sometimes failed. She would never stop grieving for Danny. But she could honor him. By helping others. By stopping bad people. By making sure no other mother had to suffer the way she did. That was her purpose now. That was what she would do with the rest of her life. And she was very good at it. The best. Because she was trained by the best. And because she had a reason. The best reason. A son who deserved better. A son who deserved justice. A son who would never be forgotten. The FBI moved faster than expected. Sanders' confession gave them everything they needed. Probable cause for warrants. Evidence for charges. Names and locations for raids. They planned to strike at dawn on Saturday. Simultaneous raids across 3 counties. 27 arrest warrants. They would hit the warehouse, the homes of corrupt officers, Victor Reyes's mansion, and the prosecutor's office. It would be the biggest corruption bust in the state's history. Lauren knew all this because her state police contact kept her informed. She had done her part. Now it was time for the system to do its job. But Friday night, something went wrong. Chief Burke did not wait for the arrests. After Lauren's visit, he panicked completely. He called Victor Reyes on a burner phone. Told him Sanders had flipped. Told him the feds were coming. Reyes responded exactly as Lauren predicted. He started destroying evidence, shredding documents, wiping computers. He also activated his emergency plan. He had escape routes prepared for situations like this: false passports, cash in offshore accounts, a private plane on standby. He planned to be out of the country before dawn, but the FBI was monitoring communications around the investigation. They caught Burke's call. They knew their operation was compromised. The special agent in charge made a decision. They could not wait until morning. They had to move now, before evidence was destroyed, before suspects ran. At 11 p.m. on Friday night, the raids began. FBI agents in tactical gear hit 7 locations simultaneously. Lauren watched it happen from home. Live police scanner feeds, news helicopters, social media posts. The whole thing played out in real time. The warehouse raid went smoothly. Agents breached the doors and found 2 guards and thousands of pounds of drugs. They arrested everyone on site and secured the evidence. At the same time, teams hit the homes of officers Palmer, Peters, Hall, and Detective Morrison. All 4 were arrested without incident. Caught off guard, no time to run or fight. They were in handcuffs before they understood what was happening. Alan Hughes, the prosecutor, was arrested at his home as well. His wife and children watched as agents took him away. His political career was over. His life was over. Victor Reyes was harder. When agents arrived at his mansion, he was already trying to leave. His car was packed. He was heading to his plane. Agents blocked his driveway with 3 vehicles. Reyes tried to run on foot. He made it about 50 yards before agents tackled him. They found $2 million in cash in his car. They found false passports. They found evidence of money laundering operations across 5 states. Reyes was done. Everything he built was collapsing. He would spend the rest of his life in federal prison. Chief Burke was the last arrest. He was not at home when agents arrived. His wife told them he left hours ago, said he was running. She gave them his truck description and plate number. She also gave them his cell phone records and computer. She had decided to cooperate. After Lauren's visit, Mrs. Burke had looked at the evidence. She realized her husband was a monster. She wanted him to pay for what he did. State police found Burke's truck at a rest stop 30 miles outside town. He was inside the building. When troopers approached, Burke pulled his service weapon. He pointed it at them. He was shaking, crying. He kept saying he was sorry. He said he never meant for things to go this far. The troopers tried to talk him down. They told him to drop the weapon. Told him it was over. Burke did not listen. He was having a breakdown. Years of corruption and murder catching up with him all at once. He screamed that he had no choice. They made him do it. He just wanted to provide for his family. The troopers kept their distance, kept trying to de-escalate. After 20 minutes, Burke finally dropped the gun. He collapsed to his knees. They arrested him without further incident. It was almost anticlimactic. The man who ordered 7 murders, the man who ran a corrupt department, the man who protected a drug cartel, reduced to a sobbing mess begging for forgiveness. By midnight, all major arrests were complete. 27 people in custody. The entire Brookshire Police Department leadership was gone. The operation was dismantled. The FBI scheduled a press conference for the next morning. They would announce the arrests. Explain the scope of the corruption. Thank the officers and agents who worked the case. They would not mention Lauren. She made sure of that. She did not want publicity. She did not want attention. She just wanted justice for Danny. And now she had it. Kate Morrison broke the story before the FBI press conference. She published a detailed article at 6 a.m. Saturday morning. She laid out the entire operation. The drug trafficking, the police corruption, the 7 murders. She included names and details. She cited federal sources who confirmed the arrests. The story went viral within hours. National news picked it up. Cable news ran segments all day. Brookshire became infamous overnight. The town where an entire police department was arrested. The town where 7 innocent people were murdered by the cops who were supposed to protect them. Morrison's article mentioned Lauren briefly. Just as the mother of one victim who had pushed for answers, Morrison kept her promise. She did not reveal Lauren's role in the investigation, did not mention her background or her methods. Lauren was just another grieving mother seeking justice. That was how she wanted it. She watched the news coverage from home. She saw the mugshots of the arrested officers. She saw Burke and Reyes being led into court. She saw the FBI director praising the investigation. She saw Danny's picture on the screen. His story being told, his death meaning something. Lauren felt empty. Not satisfied. Not happy. Just empty. Danny was still dead. Nothing would change that. No arrests would bring him back. No justice would let her hold him again. But at least his death had stopped these people. At least no other mother would lose a child the same way. At least the 7 victims would be remembered for who they really were. Innocent people murdered by corruption, not threats, not justified shootings. Victims. The legal process would take months. Federal prosecutors filed dozens of charges: murder, drug trafficking, corruption, money laundering, conspiracy. Most defendants would plead guilty. Sanders already agreed to cooperate in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. Reyes hired expensive lawyers, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. Burke was facing 7 counts of murder plus additional charges. He would die in prison. Palmer, Peters, Hall, and Morrison would all do decades. Hughes lost his law license and faced prison time as well. The whole network was destroyed. The Gulf Network cartel lost their entire Pennsylvania operation. Federal agents were tracking down their connections in other states. It would take years to fully dismantle the organization, but it was happening. 3 weeks after the arrests, Lauren received a phone call. It was Colonel Patricia Hayes, her old commanding officer. The colonel said she had heard about what happened in Brookshire. She did not ask how Lauren was involved. She did not need to. She just said she was proud, that what Lauren did required skills that most people did not have, that Danny would be proud of his mother. Lauren thanked her. Then the colonel made an offer. Come back, they needed people like Lauren. People with her experience, her skills, her determination. The world was still a dangerous place. There was still work to do. Lauren said she would think about it. But she already knew her answer. No, that life was over. She had used those skills one last time for Danny. But she was done with that world. Done with violence. Done with secrets. She just wanted peace now.